was pretty good. Thank you so much for having me here. And I wanted to just say a quick thank you to Kit and Kiri and Nick and all the volunteers and the sponsors and people who made this amazing event happen. So can we please just give them a quick round of applause? 7 and 7, year 2. So my name is Jess Ostroff. I am the Director of Comm at Don't Panic Management. And yes, I did invent those titles because that's one of the many perks of running your own business, right? You can give yourself your own title. You can name your business whatever you want, and it's awesome. So when I started as a virtual assistant, it all started from a tweet. And it was from this guy that I had known and from one of my internships, and he was on the hunt for a virtual assistant, and this was 2009. I had graduated college with a degree in marketing and international business, but I knew that I didn't want to go into the traditional, accounting, finance roles that all of my friends in New York City were doing. I wanted to do something else. And while I can't say that I always wished that I was a virtual assistant when I was a kid growing up. That didn't exist at all. The industry didn't exist when I was little, but now it is a big industry, and I knew that I was organized. I knew that I was detail-oriented. I knew that I could work on the internet. So I could be a virtual assistant, yes. And when I started, I was basically working, 4 or 5 hours a day for one of my clients. Got another client, was up to about 6 hours a day. It was awesome. I could go to the beach in the afternoon. I lived in LA at the time. I could travel on planes and pay for, the crazy amount of money it costs to get internet, which was worth it though, because I could get my work done on the plane to wherever I was going, get there and relax. And when I thought about the fact that I was always somebody's assistant, sometimes people made me feel a little bad about that, like, oh, you're just a virtual assistant. No, I'm helping people make a difference in their business. I'm doing something for them that they couldn't do themselves. And not only that, but I'm able to travel. I'm able to see things and meet people and meet all of you, for example, because I'm doing this work. But it wasn't always like that. And I want to tell you a little story about when I first started. I started officially incorporating my business in 2011. And within the first couple of years, it was very busy. I had doubled my revenue year over year, which as someone who was working alone was a lot. I started hiring my own virtual assistants, which was great. I didn't have to do everything by myself. But it took me a long time to actually delegate anything that mattered. So every morning, my alarm would go off. I would be running out of bed, thinking about all of the things that I forgot to do yesterday, all the meetings that I maybe have today that I didn't know about, and I would jump out of bed and I would run over to my computer, and my computer would be like, oh my God, here she is again. And I'd be like, I came in like a wrecking ball. Are you awake now? And let me tell you from experience that it's not a good idea to approach your work like Miley Cyrus swinging on a piece of demolition equipment. So don't do that. And I learned, starting around 2014, I finally hired my first full-time employee, which was really exciting. She was helping me take some of the actual client relationships and internal business things off my plate, which was so helpful. But I was still crazy. I was busy all the time. And I never quite felt like I could hit a groove. Every day was so different. And the expectations that were put on me by my clients and myself were very high. And I'm a really healthy person. In fact, I was talking to my mom about this the other day, and she said, the only time I remember you ever being sick was when you were in kindergarten and you got strep throat. So I basically made it from age 5 to age 28 without incident. And then this one year, I was in and out of urgent care 3 times over the course of about 4 months. Nothing too crazy. First it was strep throat. Next it was sciatica, where the whole right side of my body was radiating in pain, and I could only be perfectly vertical or perfectly horizontal, which is not the best when you work on a computer, right? And you're supposed to be sitting there doing work like this. And then about a month later, I was in a lot of pain. My head was hurting, it was itchy. I couldn't figure out what it was. I thought maybe I got bed bugs from somewhere, some place that I was traveling, or I got bit by a giant spider. So I went to the doctor again, and he said, sounds like you're having an allergic reaction. Take some Zyrtec, take a nap, you should be fine. Well, I'm not allergic to anything that I know of, so that didn't work. A few days later, it kept getting worse. I had this giant bump on my head, decided to go to another doctor, and she said, this isn't a classical presentation, but I think you have the shingles, and you're healthy, so this isn't related to your immune system being compromised. It must be related to stress. And I went, shit, I'm really stressed out. She said, you need to calm down. So this was me when I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I took this picture because I was crowdsourcing my health on the internet, which don't we all do that? It's like, I have this itch, I have this feeling. Do you know what it is? You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to go to a doctor. But so I got well, which was great. And now I have this scar on my head. It's a little reminder. I like to call it my Harry Potter scar. It's not as cool as Harry Potter's, it's like half a lightning bolt. But it reminds me of rule number 1, which is always don't panic. Because when you panic, you get the shingles. Not exactly, but I thought that I was a superhero and that I could do anything. I could put on my costume. I was wearing busy like a badge of honor. And I could conquer the world. I didn't need any help. And in fact, if I asked for help, that meant that I wasn't a good leader. That's what I thought. I thought that I had to do everything by myself because that's what business owners did. Of course, as the story shows, it's not the case. I crashed and burned. It only took about 3 years into my business, which is not a lot of time. And I'm here today because I don't want this to happen to any of you. I want to give you some strategies for getting out of your own way, getting some help, because here's the truth. Anna talked about this a little bit yesterday about what success looks like in work today, and it's this suit and tie, and it's these 60-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks. Yeah, maybe you're making a lot of money with these jobs, but you don't have any time to spend that money because you're always working, and when you're not working, you're sleeping. So this badge of busy that we have in society today is a myth. It doesn't make you a better superhero. It doesn't make you a superhero at all. Next, outsourcing and asking for help doesn't make you any less of a superhero either. In fact, what I learned is that when you do ask for help, and when you get some things off your plate, you're actually a more effective leader, you're a more effective friend and colleague, and you're a better human being. So, rule number 2, do what you love, or at least what you like. A lot of us, especially in the millennial generation, are told, follow your passion, figure out what you love to do, and then make that your work. I don't believe in that. I think that when you follow your passion, sometimes then your hobby, the thing that you always loved, becomes work. And there's a reason it's called work. It's not always awesome. But what I think is that you can enjoy your job, you can enjoy what you do at least 80% of the time, maybe even 90% of the time. But in order to figure out what those things are that you love and that you want to do in your business, you have to do a little bit of an audit. Because 90% of workers don't actually know what they do all day. Have you ever felt like this? This is not a real stat, by the way. It's totally anecdotal. Have you ever felt like you're spinning your wheels? You're working a long day, you're crossing things off, you're emailing, you're sending all this stuff out, but then you get to the end of the day and you're like having your glass of wine, you're like, what the hell did I do all day? Am I making a difference for anybody? I don't know. So here's what we're going to do. It's called a life audit, and I also loved, Anna, that you talked a little bit about this. This is a little different. I think you can use this exercise in conjunction with Anna's exercise. And what it is you're going to take pieces of paper or use a notebook, and a lot of people like to start on Monday because that's a traditional beginning of the weekday, but I know that we don't all subscribe to a normal schedule, so whatever day you start working, start on that day. And you're gonna write the different days of the week on each a separate sheet of paper. And you're gonna start with whatever time on the first day, whether it's Monday or not, 9 a.m., let's say. And you're gonna make hours, you're gonna list out all the hours on the sheet of paper, you're gonna set a timer on your phone for 60 minutes, and every time that timer goes off, you're gonna write down exactly what you did in that hour. It might look something like this. This is actually fewer things than I thought it would be. I wish I had shown you this exercise I wish I still had it when I did it in 2014, because it was like pages and pages and pages, and now I work, 4 to 6 hours a day, and I do a lot more important work, so it doesn't look like as much on paper, but yours can look like whatever it looks like. And I recommend including not only the things that you do for work, but also things like going to grab a beer with a friend, going to a yoga class, calling your mom on Skype. All the things that you do, it's a good idea to take a week, take a month if you want, that would be super exciting, and write them all down. You might not want to write them all down. I know some things I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? And I'm writing it down, and other things I'm like, well, that was a waste of time. I didn't do anything the last hour. That's okay. It's not the time to judge. It's the time to get it all out there. And so once you've done the hard work, taking a week and writing down everything, you're going to take another piece of paper and, put it horizontal, fold it in half, fold in half again. You've got a page with 4 columns. Lovely. You can use a pen or a marker to, make these a little more bold. Because what you're going to do is at the top of the first column, draw a little heart. Second column, an X. The third column, a plus. And the fourth column, a minus. And you're going to take everything from the audit that you did from your whole week, and you're only going to be able to pick one column for each thing that you did, and you're going to list it on your one piece of paper. So hopefully it will all fit. It's okay if it doesn't, but try. And you're going to think about, okay, the things that go in my heart column are the things that I love to do. These are the things that make me want to wake up in the morning and jump out of bed. These are the things like having conversations with my clients that I love, or doing meetings with my team, whatever it is that you love, put it in that column. And these are the things that keep you alive. These are the things that make you want to work, like I said. So these are the things that you want to keep doing for sure. The next column is for things that you hate, the X column. And it should be easy to identify these. For me, I noticed that I always leave the things that I hate for the end of the day. So always the ones that were at the bottom were the things that I hated. Put them in that column. And these are things that when you get going, after you figure out all of this, that you should definitely delegate, because you already hate them, and there's no reason to be doing things that you hate. But we all have them, which is okay. The third column is the plus column. These are the things that are necessary for your business. You don't necessarily love them or hate them, but you know that they need to get done. So these are things that, fortunately or unfortunately, you're going to have to keep for your business, but you don't necessarily have to do them yourself. You can either delegate them, automate them. You could do something with them, but they are things that you're going to have to keep. And finally, this is the minus column, I like to call it the I don't know column, because it's things that, you don't need. They're not necessary for your business. They're not things that are making you happy. So it's good to relegate them or automate them. And when I say relegate, I mean get rid of. So those are things that you definitely don't want to be doing in your business at all. So rule number 3, first relegate, then automate. Relegating is the easiest thing you can do, because like I said, if it's things that you are, not enjoying and they're not doing anything for your business, you should get rid of them. So always ask yourself, with every single thing that's on your list, why am I doing this? Is it because it makes me happy? Is it because it services a client? Is it because it services my community? Sometimes it doesn't always have a tangible outcome immediately, but it does make a difference for the people in your life. If it doesn't contribute to your bottom line, this is a business, right? So let's say you love checking Facebook all day, but you're not a social media manager and you don't run a community, and it doesn't do anything for your bottom line. It really doesn't. Well, I'm sorry, but you should either become a social media manager or stop checking Facebook so much. And finally, if it's something that you always have done, and I think that we often, especially if we've been running our businesses for a long time, there are some things that we just do because maybe when we started we needed to do them, or maybe because someone told us we should do them, and so we do them. But really take a look and see, is this something that I've always done just because, or is it something that I've always done because it matters? And maybe you forgot. Maybe you forgot why it matters. And that's another reason why this exercise is so important, because it can help you see all of the things in one place and remember, oh yeah, I was doing that because it used to help me with this thing. And why did I stop doing that thing? Oh, it's because it was this thing. You can kind of get into a cycle of really evaluating and auditing your business and your life. So automation. There are a lot of things you can automate in this world. And, there are tools, there are services. A lot of them are very affordable, which is great. I don't know why these slides are black. Do you? They were white before. Okay, that's okay. Can everybody see? It's white writing, okay. Meeting reminders. I use a tool called Calendly. There are things like Mixmatch. There are a lot of ways to automate scheduling for your calendar. And for me, I'm on the phone a lot. And I don't necessarily need an assistant to schedule my meetings for me because my calendar is pretty straightforward. I only take meetings at certain times. And I have them set up in my Calendly account. And Calendly will automatically send the meeting invites, all the details, to join my Uber conference line at the time. And it sends a reminder the day before. And I could even set it to an hour before if I think that maybe this client is a little flaky. So I don't need to remember to send them a reminder. The tool does it for me. And there's nothing I hate more than having my time wasted. So meeting reminders are really great. Another thing, travel updates. I know a lot of us travel, and you guys probably know even more tools than I do, but I use TripIt Pro. It puts in all of my hotels, all of my flights, and if something happens and I'm working, I don't necessarily want to check my flight status. TripIt will just send me a notification, your flight's delayed, or your flight's now out of Terminal 4 instead of Terminal 2. Super helpful. Another thing, social media messages. I mean, we're all trying to get the word out there about something, right? It doesn't mean you have to be sitting on Twitter, 24/7 posting things, but you may want to put some things into Buffer, put some things into Sprout Social or Hootsuite, let them run for a week. So that way you only have to do it on Sundays or on Mondays, whatever day you decide. Reporting. I hate running reports, and sometimes I need to. There are things like, social media reports, but there's also time tracking reports. I know a lot of us do work with clients, and the clients expect you to track your time and to be able to report on whatever you did that month. So things like Harvest, FreshBooks, these are tools that can automatically give you a report of what you did that month, which is super helpful. And I put this one on here because you don't just have to automate your work. If you hate buying toilet paper like I do, I hate going to the store and picking up a roll of 40 rolls of toilet paper and trying to get them into my car. But what I hate more is buying 6 rolls of toilet paper, every week. So now I have one of those little Amazon Prime buttons in my bathroom. And every time I'm down to 1 roll of toilet paper, I press the button, and 2 days later, I have 40 new rolls of toilet paper, and I never have to leave my house. And it's awesome. So if you don't like to buy toilet paper, if you don't like to cook, there are these services that can bring you pre-made meals, or you can use something like Plated or Blue Apron. There are all these services that bring you stuff to your house. Do it. It's worth the money because it gives you your time back. And that's what's so valuable about all of this. The next rule, and this is what we're going to spend the majority of the time talking about, when in doubt, source it out. So you figured out how to get things off your plate from the minus column. You've maybe gotten some of the plus column off your plate as well through relegating and automating. and now you're going to delegate. And this means a human being. And that's why it's hard. Working with people is always hard. And when you are doing something in your business, and you're starting a business on your own, you maybe haven't learned how to work with other people. You maybe haven't learned how to manage other people. So I want to give you some strategies. These are some places to look. I always recommend that if you're going to hire someone, a freelancer, a virtual assistant, or whoever, talk to your network. How many people in here have ever used a freelancer or VA, hired somebody? A few? A lot? Okay, great. So ask people here, who did you use? How was your experience? Because when you're working with VAs, they are their own boss, they are their own business, and so you benefit and they benefit when you refer them to good people, because it keeps them in business, which helps you. Some other places I recommend, definitely LinkedIn. And the cool thing about virtual assistants now, too, is they can be very specialized. So I don't recommend just searching virtual assistant. You'll get a lot of results. If you need someone to produce your podcast, search podcasting virtual assistant. Search social media virtual assistant. People are really optimizing their profiles on LinkedIn now, and they have got recommendations there. They've got their past experience there. It's a really great way to find great people. And then, of course, there's Google. There's marketplaces like Upwork. Many people, I'm sure, have used those. TaskRabbit and Freelancer.com. Some of these other ones are more agencies, sort of more similar to Don't Panic, where it's kind of the hybrid model where they match you with somebody or they find someone that they think is going to be a good fit to you and you can buy a package of hours. There are different ways to find these people, and you need to choose what's best for you. But I always recommend starting with your peers and people in your network. Now, I don't know why this happened, but a lot of people that I've worked with think that, oh, I'm hiring a VA, someone told me about them, so they're awesome. I don't have to do anything else, I'm just going to hire them. And that's when things go wrong. So always set up an interview, and set up an interview with double the amount of people that you think. So if you want to have 5 people in your pool of candidates that you can choose from, interview 10. And these are just some things to ask. I mean, you always want to go for the things that are relevant to you, obviously, normal interview questions. But some things specifically for VAs. Have you ever worked virtually before? A lot of people are trying to break into the VA space, and maybe they've done that type of work, but they've never actually worked from home. And that can be a little bit of a red flag, because working from home or working from coffee shop is not for everybody. So ask them that. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it is something to consider. Tell me about a time where you truly kicked ass at work. You don't have to say it exactly this way. But this gives your VA a time to toot their own horn. It gives you a chance to see kind of what makes them tick. When did they feel like they did an awesome job? Because you want to be able to provide them with the kind of opportunities and the kind of work that allow them to shine. And on the contrary, so this is kind of like another way to ask the strengths and weaknesses question. Tell me about a time where you made a mistake. And I like to ask this question before the how did you handle it part. Everybody makes mistakes. It's going to happen at some point, no matter who you hire. But the way they handle it is what's most important to me. Did they own up to the mistake? Did they do everything that they could to try and rectify it and make sure that it didn't happen again? Those are the things that you want to look for. What do you love both in and out of work? This is sort of trying to get to know them a little more, asking about their hobbies, asking them what they like to do in their spare time. You always want to be sure that your VA has a little bit of a life, I think, because then it shows you that they care. Because if they care about things that they're doing outside of work, they're probably going to care about things that they're doing for you in work as well. And finally, what do you do to keep learning? This is another question along that line of, is this a person who loves to Google things and figure out how to fix a light bulb or, well, that's not that hard. Everyone should know how to fix a light bulb, right? Do they listen to podcasts? Are they taking online courses? Are they doing things that are making them more valuable, not only to themselves, but maybe to you? Maybe they're someone that's really curious and they like to learn new things, and so they can grow and change with your business. And when you start a podcast, they can say, ooh, I know how to do that because I took a course on it. These kinds of people are great. How to train. This is another thing that I don't know why people don't think they need to do any training with the VA, but they do. I recommend that you always set up a trial or a test project to get your VA, well equipped to do things. And this is because I think that when you do a test project, you can actually see their work product. And I always pay for these test projects because it shows a little good faith. I may not pay as much as I would pay them when I actually hire them, but hey, here's $50, spend a couple hours on this project. If you do it well, I will pay you. If you don't do it well, I won't pay you. So, you don't necessarily have to give them all the money right up front. But make sure that when you're doing these test projects, you're setting up a clear process and you're using something like a tool. I like to use Loom, or Vidyard has a new tool called Go Video. They're those ones where you can share your screen and your little face is in the corner so they can see you, they can hear what you're talking about, and you can kind of walk them through the different steps of the things that you expect them to do. And you want to set reasonable deadlines. So I like to do this like my example before. Let's say you interviewed 10 people and you got 5 decent candidates and you want to give this test project to all 5 of them and you want to say, okay, I'm assigning it on Monday, it's due on Friday, give them all the same instructions, give them all the same templated email, and see how they do. Once they're done, you want to make sure that you have a rubric, because otherwise you're just looking at a piece of paper or some kind of online delivery and you're being subjective about it. And all of this stuff, you want to be as objective as possible. So at Don't Panic, we use a red, yellow, green system because it's pretty clear. Red means stop, red means bad, green means good, and yellow means I don't really know about this. So you want to make sure you have a few different things that you're going to grade on. Did they send it in on time? Is it in the format that you asked for? It can be very simple things, but you'd be surprised how many people do not follow directions. So make sure you have some of those simple things. Did they give you what you were asking for? Did they communicate when they had a question or a problem? Did something happen and they had to ask for an extension? I'm okay with that as long as you tell me in advance. And so once you get through this, you want to give everything a point. You don't have to use this exact system. This is just an example. Red is worth 1 point because it's bad. Yellow is like, it's not the worst, but I'm not super happy with it. And you can totally give yellows because sometimes people can still pass with yellows. That's worth 2 points. Green is worth 3. And then you're going to take all these numbers and you're going to set your own, whatever your own average is that you think is reasonable. If someone got greens on all of them, that's great. You definitely want to work with that person. But, you may have some points taken off here and there. I'm a very harsh grader. Nobody gets all greens, no matter what. But you want to, take all the numbers that you have, divide them by the number of questions, and that's how you get your average. And if they pass, you can say, great. And if they don't pass, you just say they didn't pass. It's nothing personal. You didn't pass. I'm sorry, you're not a good fit. Take some of the pressure off of you. I know it's hard to say no to people. You don't have to. So once you've hired someone, that's not the end. And you probably don't hear this phrase very often, put the me in team. You're usually supposed to put like the we in team or something. But some of this is about you, and I want to make sure that you are doing your homework. You're doing your due diligence. If they give you references, which you should always ask them to give you references, check them. If someone says to you, I really like this person on the surface, but they actually couldn't follow directions that well and they were always late. And if that's something that matters to you, whether you love them in the interview, whether they pass their test project, it doesn't matter, they're not a good fit. So do your homework. Set concrete, tangible, and achievable goals. Again, I know that, like I said, we're not always trained on how to be a manager. We're not always trained on how to lead people. And so we want to make sure that we have these goals set so that we can make sure that our assistant is set up for success. Prepare to set aside at least 2 to 5 hours the first week. This is another thing that not everybody thinks about. You have to be available. You can't be like, here's my new VA, you're so shiny and beautiful, go. You have to be there for them. And if you don't have this kind of time because your schedule's so busy, I understand, but then you need to find another time to hire somebody because you need to be available for them. And then how do you develop a relationship with a VA that actually lasts? In the best relationships, These go on for years. I have a client that I've been working with since 2010, since that first tweet that he sent saying, I need a VA. I'm not his VA anymore. I do other things for him now, and I have my team on board helping with him. But there's no reason that you can't find someone to grow with your business forever. That's the beauty about this kind of work, and it's the beauty about being virtual, because you can have someone who loves being virtual just as much as you do. So just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Remember Dory from Finding Nemo? That's where this comes from. Communication is key. You want to be available as much as possible. You can set the terms on which you're available. Get me on Slack, get me on WhatsApp, get me on email. You can communicate to them how you want to be communicated with, but the important thing is the communication. Doesn't matter how you do it, just matters that you do it. Set up weekly recurring meetings. This is so important. I know people, again, say, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. Well, if you have to change the meeting a day or an hour, that's okay. Just make sure you have it on the books. And make sure that at least in the beginning you're doing it every week. You may be able to push it back to twice a month or once a month, but make sure that you're doing this, especially in the beginning. It gives the opportunity for your assistant to ask questions. It gives you the opportunity to give feedback. And it's really great for building the morale between you and your assistant. And similar, if you say to touch base with you on Slack, well, don't then not be available on Slack for 3 days. Say to them, hey, I'm not going to be available on Slack for 3 days. You can text me, because I'm going to be on the beach drinking a pina colada, whatever it is. Feedback. This is another thing that I think we're not always great at. I'm terrible at it. I always forget to say something, and then I get all pissed off, and I'm like passive-aggressive, and there's no room for passive aggression in any virtual relationship because people can't see you. People can't see that you're pissed off. They have to assume something, and if they don't hear anything, sometimes no news is good news. So just say something. And remember to try to give twice as much positive feedback as negative feedback. You might have to actually set reminders for yourself to do this. Even it could be something really small, like, hey, I noticed that you signed off that email with the thing I asked you to. You didn't say cheers, you said all the best. Little things like that you can say something about. And remember that you're the client, but VAs are their own boss. Unless you hire an employee, you have to remember that relationship, because otherwise it's going to create a little bit of tension, and that's what you don't want here. If you're looking for some more ways, I love the tagline of this book, be a kick-ass boss without losing your humanity. It's a great resource for how to give feedback without seeming like you're the boss, right? Like you're too overbearing and micromanaging. So I definitely recommend this book called Radical Candor. Use tools. This is a great way to keep your relationship thriving and living large. But just remember to think about what your goals are first. You don't want to just pick a tool because it's shiny and new. That's always fun. But think about what your goals are. Think about whether you even need a tool to accomplish your goals. And pick the tools and tactics second. Because in this second point, you want to be able to pick a tool and stick with it. When you have to be changing tools all the time, it's very painful. And I did this with the project management tool earlier this year because we outgrew it. And it was awful. I wasn't sure if all the tasks got moved over. I wasn't sure if the clients still had access. Thanks to my team, it went pretty smoothly. But we had been using our other project management tool for 5 years. So it's not like you should have to change tools that often if you do the work up front to try and find the right ones. Don't use accidental tools. Again, the shiny tool syndrome is real. I get it. I love installing apps on my phone. I love picking up new Chrome extensions and things like that. Tools can weigh you down. You want to be light. And so make sure that you're not using accidental tools. And always be evaluating what you're doing. I recommend evaluating, similar to how you do your life audit, do a tools audit at least once a year, maybe twice a year. And make sure that every single tool you're using is helping you reach your goals. Rule number 7, because all good things come in sevens, right? 7 and 7. Celebrate small wins. Recognize. Again, this goes in line with the feedback. Recognize, appreciate, dance, sing, do whatever you need to do, and do it again. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Your communication is so important, especially with virtual relationships. You want to make sure that everything that you say has meaning. because your VA is looking to you for guidance and support and feedback. Listen. I love what Janice said yesterday about extroverts and introverts communicating with each other, but it's not just something that extroverts need to do. We all need to listen better. And there was another question yesterday about what do I do if, my assistant's house got destroyed in the hurricane and I had no idea. Well, sometimes you're not going to know. That's okay. But if you start listening with not just your ears, but your intuition, and you notice that your VA is maybe always on time until this week, things are a little bit late, and you're not hearing from them as much, say, hey, is everything okay? Maybe that will give them the opportunity to say, you know what, my house got destroyed. And you never know. A lot of people are very private. A lot of people won't say anything, but you won't know unless you ask. So listen and ask. Commit random acts of kindness. I'm great with gifts, but things like National Coffee Day, I sent my whole team a $5 Starbucks gift card. It's not much, but it bought them a coffee that day. And they went, oh my gosh, she likes me. Little things like that. And finally, remember my birthday. This is not exactly my birthday, but if you're not good at feedback, the way I'm not good at feedback, and you don't remember to do it every day, at least put their birthday on your calendar and set a reminder a week before to buy them something or send them something or do something for them that's great, because they will remember that you remembered. And again, this is all about building a sustainable relationship that lasts. So the goal of all of this today is for you to have more progress, more efficiency, and less stress in your business, because we know what stress does. It's not good for you. Our society is more tired and more sick than ever. It doesn't have to be this way. In 2014, when I started to get better, I started to heal, I also started to pull off my superhero costume. And I found that all of a sudden, I had more time. I had more energy. I was able to make space to do things that I was afraid of, like flying to Barcelona and sharing my story with all of you, or locking myself in a lake house for 8 days and writing a book, or saying yes when my fiance asked me to marry him. And I want all of you to find that space in your lives, in your business, in your hearts, because when you do, you become kinder, you become wiser, you become a better human, and we all need to be better. So just remember that the amount that you're willing to grow all depends on how much you're able to let go. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you.
So, guys, you know how this works. We're going to open it up for Q&A. As always, give you time to think of your questions for Jess. I'm going to ask the first one.
Okay.
So, say you've hired someone and you didn't do any of those things.
Okay.
And you are feeling like a couple months down the road, like, damn, I need to fix this. Do you have a strategy for kind of walking back and starting from the beginning, or would you advise like just starting over?
I definitely advise, if there's anything there at all that you think can be salvageable, try and salvage it. Because even though you didn't do all that work up front necessarily, there is time still for you to make it right. And I think you just need to, it sounds like usually when this happens, it's because you didn't set clear expectations, you didn't set clear goals, and you didn't communicate what you wanted. That's okay, you can still do that. So kind of, I like to call it like almost a helicopter mom situation. Like, we're going back to helicopter mom, okay? Like, I'm gonna watch everything you do for a couple weeks. You're gonna send everything to me for approval before it goes out. It's kind of annoying for you, and you have to be prepared to take some time. But I think it's totally salvageable if you think that there's something there. If you're like, this person, I don't like this person, and they're not good at their job, well, give them their 2 weeks or whatever your contract says, and it's okay. Find someone else. But I think that there's always room for salvaging.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Questions for Jess? Yeah, leave.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with your clients with respect to two questions? The first one is, I mean, outsourcing is more expensive than having own clients, own team members. And the other thing is that when you outsource or have team members, that you more can focus on the tasks that bring you more revenue, which means, I mean, you have a rate of 130 per hour, whereas the assistance has 40, so it really makes sense to switch what you're doing.
Right. So the first part of your question, employees are cheaper than VAs. That's not always true, because with employees, a lot of times you have to provide benefits. You have to pay taxes to the government. When you hire freelancers, they do that for you. I think if you need full-time support, and you are a certain kind of manager where you want to kind of be looking over their shoulder a little more, and you want to be able to set their hours, and you want to have more control over them, employees is the way to go, and having full-time employees especially is the way to go. If you know, like you said, that, say your rate is $130 an hour and their rate is $40 an hour, and they're able to do some things for you that you would normally be able to use those $130 an hour time for, do that, because you can always start small. You can always start someone $40 an hour, 5 hours a week, and you can grow up from there, or not. If you're like, $40 an hour is my max for 5 hours a week, but then maybe, you can find a VA for $3 an hour to do some of the other stuff, and then you make even more profit. You kind of get what you pay for, I think, with VAs and with freelancers in general, so you want to be careful about that. But, I think that you have to look at your own budget. You have to look at what you're comfortable with. It's definitely an investment, no matter what. When I hired my first full-time employee, I couldn't really afford her, but I knew I had to make the leap because I was driving myself crazy, and immediately it paid back in dividends. I was able to get more clients, and all of a sudden she was paid for. So I think it just depends on the type of work. It depends on you as a manager, how much control you want to have, and it depends on what you're feeling comfortable enough to set aside in terms of your budget. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. We have a question over here, Jenny.
Hello. Thank you. That was a really great talk. I really needed that.
Thank you.
I hired a VA for the first time this year, like somebody from the Philippines, like $5 an hour. But I also feel like, okay, let me start again. So my question is, I feel like I need a VA to kind of sort my business out because it's a mess. Like, I'm not very good at organizational tasks, putting systems into place. But I also feel at the same time, I need to have all those systems in place first before I can hire somebody to actually help me. How do I get over that? Like, where do I start?
Okay, so there's someone here that I met yesterday. Where is she? She's an online business manager, and I think she does that. She organizes your business and sets up systems. She probably costs more, but you may not need her forever. You may want to pay someone like a consultant or a coach or something to do all that work, and then say, thank you, stay with me or not, and then you're able to hire you. I don't recommend hiring VA if you feel like that. It's not going to be successful for anybody. Definitely get yourself organized, get your business organized, spend a little money up front, but you don't have to have someone doing that forever, because then you can have your VA take over whatever the organizational tasks were that person set up for you.
Sure,
Yeah.
Jenny, sure. So my second question is, you mentioned finding a specialized VA, for example, if you have a podcast. Would you recommend doing that, like literally for each task, like have somebody who's like a blog manager and somebody who does your emails, like really separate those tasks out?
Yes, or hire an agency, a VA agency that has all of those people, and it also, a lot of this depends on you, again, and I hate saying that, but if you think that you can train someone to do it how you want, or if you're not that picky about it, maybe someone who does blog management can also do email management just fine. And so it kind of depends on your level of how good you need them to be. But if you can, get someone who's really specialized, because they're going to do it right, and you're not going to have to spend as much time with them, and you're not going to have to worry as much about them. Because it's all about trust, and you want to make sure that you're not like, did they do it right? Because then that's your time again. So the more you specialize you can be, I think the better. Sometimes they cost a little more. But if you have more time, like if you're like, okay, I'm working on this project, it's over in June. I'm going to spend June and July like really getting stuff together and spending time training my VAs so that in August, when I'm going on traveling again, they're all good and I can leave. So if you have the time to train and do that with them, you could probably find someone that you can work with that can do everything. But if not, specializing in the different tasks is useful.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. I saw, yeah, Michelle over there in the back. Run, John, run.
He's getting his workout this morning.
So I guess in my head, I always thought that like hiring people and outsourcing would come once I feel like I've really like made it and I can afford to have people under my wing. Do you feel like that's the case, or it sounds like maybe, I don't know, like chicken and the egg situation? What do you think?
That's a great question. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with is, how do I know when I'm ready? I think you know based on how you feel, more so than you know based on what's in your bank account. If you really are losing your mind, it's worth hiring someone, even if you have to go out of your own pocket a little bit. That's what I did in the beginning, because I knew that I had 80 hours of client work. I was like, I can't do 80 hours of client work by myself. So, I got some help, and then I raised my rates, and then I established things a little bit more, and it does, if you do it right, it pays for itself very quickly, because all of a sudden you have that time. And again, with the VA, what's so great about it, as opposed to, say, an employee, is you can start with, I think some places even offer like 2 hours a week or 10 hours a month. And you can then use those for whatever you want. And just having that time back, 10 hours of business development for me is huge. So if you can make sure that you're being intentional with your time, if you are going to outsource some of that time to actually grow your business and get more clients or do whatever it is that you do, then I think that those VA hours will pay for themselves within a month. So it is a little chicken and the egg. You got to invest, but it's worth it.
Cool. All right, thank you so much. Okay, one more question, Cassie.
Thanks, Kit. Appreciate it. I'm curious to know, because you run an agency, like how often are you hiring or working with a Filipino VA that's like $5 an hour? Because I know in your presentation you had a more lengthy interview process, and nothing to say about them, but I'm assuming they wouldn't have made the cut in that interview process.
For me, all of my VAs are in the States, and that's just one of our selling propositions. We're a United States-based agency that only works with United States. Well, actually, that's not true. North America, I would say. We have some Canadians. It's not meant to be discriminatory. It's just, for us, we're kind of a higher level. But yeah, I don't think that it matters, though, what country they're from. You could ask those same questions of someone in any country, and it's more about the person than where they're from. It's more about their level of education and their skill set. It just depends on what you want and what you're comfortable with. For me, the language barrier was really hard, and a lot of our clients are in the States, and they wanted to know, like, if I needed to, I could go to their house and knock on their door and be like, where's that project? I can't fly to the Philippines and do that. So I think it's possible no matter where you get your VA from, but you may just adjust a little bit for that.
All right, I know there's probably more questions, but we're going to have to let Jess get off the stage. Give her a huge round of applause, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.